Abandoned Planet is played in rounds, and each round is broken into 3 phases. You can see this if you look at your reference sheet. It's double-sided, so it might look like this, but just flip it over. Each round begins with the Get Ready phase. The first thing you can do is prep for launch, but this is only used when players have enough resources to try to win the game, so we'll skip it for now. Now the leader views the meteor card by shuffling the meteor deck and secretly viewing the top card. This is where the meteor will land this turn, after everyone has flown out. The meteor always hits the first resource tile available in the direction of that number, and you don't want to be in its way. The leader can choose to let people know where the meteor will land. This can be done verbally or by passing path cards to each other, but the leader can always lie. Players now choose which path they will be going on during the Choose Path step. Players may discuss aloud and even pass cards telling each other where they're going. However, whispering is not allowed. It's worth it to discuss where you're going because if you land in the same spot as someone else, you'll have to fight that player for their resources. So, communication is key, honest or otherwise. Once everyone has chosen their path card, the leader counts down and everyone reveals their card. Now the flyout phase begins, which starts with fly out and collect. The leader starts and flies to either of the tiles on the path selected. Since the leader flew to the city, they may choose any of the 5 resources and place it in their loading bay. Whenever you get a resource, it remains in your loading bay until you fly back to the base hex. Moving clockwise, each rocket flies to their desired tile in their chosen path. This rocket flew to a slider tile, which means they can occupy the space and collect a tech resource, or slide to the next tile over on the left or right. However, the player chooses to stay put and collect the tech. But maybe that was a mistake, because now another rocket is landing on top of it. That means a takeover attempt is about to begin, which occurs anytime a rocket lands on an occupied tile. The first rocket is the defender, and the second is the attacker. The defending rocket has a few different ways to respond, which are listed on the reference sheet in the Takeover Options section. The defending player chooses to bribe the crew of the attacking ship with 2 scrap, meaning they can keep the resource gained from the tile and only give up the scrap. The attacker must accept this, unless, of course, they can play a Sabotage Meteorite token. This cancels the bribe. The defending player retrieves their scrap, but loses the takeover and gives up their loading bay items to the attacker's loading bay. Now that all players have flown out, the leader completes the Meteor Reveal phase by flipping over this round's Meteor card. Any tile the meteor hits is removed from the game forever. The rocket can protect itself by playing a shield. That tile is destroyed, but the rocket escapes unharmed and gets to keep the items in its loading bay. An Aftermath tile is now revealed and placed in the location the meteor struck, and a meteorite token is placed on it to represent the meteor that just crashed there. Aftermath tiles represent new possibilities and a sort of leveling up effect in the complexity of the game. Pay attention to each tile as it comes out to see what dirty tricks you can use. All players take damage and scavenge if they need to. Basically, if a meteor hit your rocket, or if you lost a takeover, you scavenge the wreckage of the Earth and collect 1 meteorite token to your loading bay. Now it's time to fly back. All rockets return to base. If any pair of rockets can abandon planet, they would do this now, but it's still too early in the game. Now players exchange and unload. Any item on your sheet can be used as part of an exchange, regardless of whether it's in your inventory or loading bay. The different types of exchanges can be found on your reference sheet. Any item gained from an exchange is put in your loading bay first. Once all exchanges are complete, unload the loading bay items to your inventory. But be careful, since you can't have more than 1 item per symbol. Make exchanges so you don't have to toss anything out. This rocket returned with a meteorite token but already has 2, so the player will need to look at all 3 of their meteorite tokens, choose what to keep, and discard the unwanted meteorite face up. Luckily, this is also an exchange. The player receives 1 scrap for that meteorite. Okay, let's play another round. Players choose paths, strategize and discuss, and reveal their cards simultaneously. The flyout phase begins, starting with the leader. Normally, the rockets fly out in turn order, but this can change if a delay token is played. This allows you to fly out after the last player this round. Place the delay meteorite under your rocket for this round. Once a path is chosen, players can only choose to place their rockets on either of the tiles in their chosen path, unless they reveal a booster token. The booster lets you fly to any empty tile. Since the player flew to the ruined city, They roll the die to see which resource they'll find, along with a scrap. This player is landing on the slider tile and chooses to slide to the ruined city. This is an occupied tile, so it begins a takeover. The defending rocket decides to defend itself by playing a cannon token, winning the takeover for the defender, unless the player has a shield, which they do. The defending rocket loses the takeover, and the attacker gains the pieces from their loading bay. Now it's the delayed rocket's turn. This green rocket, having patiently waited for the right moment, lands on that parts tile and begins a final takeover. The defending rocket has no scrap to bribe and no cannon to fire. It's helpless, and the attacking rocket gets some sweet, sweet vengeance for the last turn, stealing their loading bay items. Now that all rockets have flown out, the meteor is revealed. A tile is removed from the game forever, and an aftermath tile replaces it. Damage is taken, or not. Players who lost takeovers or who were hit by the meteor scavenge for meteorites. The flyback phase begins, returning the rockets to base. Back on base, no one is ready to abandon planet, so we skip that again for now. Exchanges occur and resources are unloaded to inventories. The last turn's safe path gets shuffled in, path cards are retrieved, and leadership passes clockwise for another explosive round. And that wraps up 2 turns of Abandoned Planet.